this. So regular lawn care, just kind of sitting there, not treating the soil or anything like that. When you break it down, just regular lawn care is like leaving 4 compact cars running on your yard for the course of 1 year.
Welcome back to the Soil Talks podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing what is happening beneath the surface of your lawn. In this episode, we sit down with Robert Gaunt, the Lawn and Tree Operations Manager at Moyer, to bridge the gap between backyard maintenance and high-level plant science. Today, we're going to explore the green philosophy, a revolutionary shift from traditional chemical schedules to a biologically driven approach that prioritizes soil health. Robert, welcome today.
Thanks so much, Brandon.
Absolutely, yes. And also welcome to the whole audience as well that's going to be watching this. We're excited to dive deep into this with you. I think we found the right guy. I know we found the right guy.
Super excited.
So you work for Moyer now.
Yes.
You hold all these accolades, but you work for Moyer as operations manager, correct?
That's correct.
And that's pretty cool, man. Moyer, just a brief little nod to Moyer. You know, they were founded in 1869, I believe. That's a 150-year-old company. How is it working for them?
That stood the test of time like them, from being like a small feed mill in Souderton, Pennsylvania, to what we are today. Super cool to be with an organization.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how they've stayed relevant for now, like we said, 150 years. You know, I know it's family owned. It's not a massive corporation. I mean, it is a big corporation, don't get me wrong, but it's still family owned. You still have some of the Moyer family there, you know, every day, you know, helping to operate that business. So how has it really stayed relevant in your eyes? I mean, is it just the fact that they have so many facets to their company that the lawn and tree care is one piece of it, but they do all types of different services? Is that kind of how they've done that?
Absolutely. And it's just like anything, you know, what we're going to kind of get into today, it's just about evolving. You know, every time, you know, a homeowner needs something, you know, Moyer tries to step up and be there and provide that service that they need, especially on our side of the business or my side of the business. It's just kind of staying relevant. You know, there's a lot of competition out there. People don't want to bounce around from company to company. They want that a one-stop shop, and they want that connection with that family-owned company. And that's where we kind of set the standard.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And that's exactly what you guys are doing in this turf and tree care portion of Moyer. And that's what we're excited about. We've been talking about it for years, actually, to tell you the truth. You know, I met you probably, I believe, about 3 years ago now. So we've talked about it for quite a while, you know, and it's neat to see that this evolution is taking place. It did take some time. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, you know what? You have to take baby steps, and then it seems like that snowball is it's growing and growing. So that's what's kind of interesting, you know. And I would say, you know, I believe you said, you know, in your bio, you were about 12 years old when you had a caddy job at a golf course or something in Pennsylvania. And I would guess, you know, you worked your way up when you say from the bottom, right? I'm sure you were a mower at a point in time, and then you just continuously. It interested you, you added accolades, and now you're the scientist, I would say, right?
It is. It's been super cool. And even when I look back a little bit further, Brandon, I remember, you know, going fishing with my uncle up in Maine, and we would be along these big lakes. And I would always ask him why the color was changing in the water. And the big farmland behind it, he would be like, well, that's all the fertilizer running off. And then now looking back at it today, I can kind of see it. And I was always amazed at how golf courses looked that good and everything. And then to where I am now and be able to study it and really truly get into the science of it, I just wanted to figure out like what and how it all came together. And that's kind of been, like I said, since 12 years old, working on a golf course, to being a landscaper at one point in time in the summers, to where I am now, you know, being the director of lawn and tree and operations over at Moyer. It's been an exciting journey, something I'm super passionate about to this day. You know, you and I have talked many times over the last 3 years, and it's just great to start seeing it all come together.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And it also takes a mindset from the owner standpoint, and from, you know, because it's a hard thing to do, right? It's a hard thing just to be like, you know what, I've always done our lawn and tree care 100% chemical or whatever that looks like, right? I mean, Absolutely. Like you guys use conventional fertilizers, use conventional inputs, and then to switch that system, it's scary. But on the flip side of it, it's not. It is, you know, everybody says, oh, it's the future. Well, we're in the future now. And you guys are the leaders at changing this over, you know, especially on the scale that you're doing it at. So that's exciting to us. And Really, what drove you to pursue that master's in plant sciences then after 2 decades really in the field?
It kind of actually goes back. So I was working kind of out your way for a few years for another company, and I remember sitting there and kind of looking there, and I was working in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm sitting there looking around, going, "How does this all grow in this kind of climate?" And, working in Colorado Springs and out that way in Palm Desert, California, I just didn't understand it, like how these blooms would come, how this stuff would just thrive in this kind of climate. So I really started getting into like how it all works, starting to do a little research on my own, figuring it out. And as time went on, I realized that I really understood nothing. So I kind of took a step back. I found it so interesting and I wanted to find out like the why and the how it all came together, how the science worked, how the actual ecosystem worked. And my wife and I, we're big into nature. Our son's name is Silas, which means man of the woods. We love just being able to kind of take that back a little bit and just do a little bit better for the environment. That's super important to us. So finding out how it all came together, being able to really dive into being able to reduce herbicides and pesticides and find out what really makes those lawns thrive is why I decided to go after it. And I can say this, I learned more than I ever thought. And there's more to lawn care and tree care that I ever thought was imaginable. And you and I have talked, and you've taught me a lot along my way. It's not just lawn care anymore. It's really a science-backed soil that we are dealing with to get what we really need. And it's all in all, it's just better for everybody.
It is, and that's the thing is it's so true. As you look at it, you really, as you start to dig into it, you realize how much you really don't know.
Yes.
And then and it's another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole. But the reality is the day, we stop learning is going to be the day we start dying. Right. So at the end
That's
of the
true.
day, like you will learn something every single day of your life, especially when it gets into soil, because we know very little still about soil. And that, I mean, yes, we know a lot about soil, but the whole scope of it is we really don't understand the interconnections to the deepest of deep levels, which that's what excites me about being in this industry, looking at soil health, those types of these systems, like you say, being in these desert climates and these climates, like how is that growing here? Like, how is it even possible? And it goes back to the
Absolutely.
soil. It's not the fertilizers. It's not all the other inputs. Yes, of course they have to be there. You have to have nutrition, but it's the soil health. And that's what's exciting about this. And then how would you say the industry has shifted from reactive? And I don't think it's shifted all the way. I mean, really what you guys are kind of doing is leading this charge, Rob. But how is that shifting from a reactive, like spraying for problems, to more of a proactive building soil health? I mean, there is more and more companies starting to come out and people like, hey, I want my soil to be healthy. I understand this more and more. But you guys are kind of leading this this proactive approach of let's build good, healthy soil and we don't have to have as much reaction. So is it starting to shift? Are you seeing that in the industry?
Slowly but surely, especially out this way. And it really is about changing that mindset. I think the way that it had always been for years is we treat a symptom. We think more is better when we put it down. Grass goes brown, we hit it with more nitrogen. It browns out again in the summer, we hit it more nitrogen. And it really comes down to people and the education and understanding that it's more about sustainability than it is for solving that one problem that really isn't actually handling the root of it, lack of a better phrase. It
Sure.
really does start beneath us and then it goes. And then when people start to understand the concept of reducing herbicides and pesticides and by up to 75%, and the biggest thing that I see is people start to care about their families, their pets, their kids. And when they understand how much better this is, not only for us, but for the environment, that's where that shift. But it has been very slow. I think a lot of, people aren't being so progressive when it comes to doing this because it is change. It's scary, like you said,
It is.
making that big change when we've been doing this for 50 years and this is just starting to catch on. But all in all, I mean, the reactions that I get, talking to hundreds and hundreds of people, it really is the future of where we're going. And when you kind of lay that out in front of everybody and let them understand that, yes, it does take time. It's not a magic wand. It never will be. But all in all, this is the end result. And ultimately, from what I see, it's 1,000 times better.
Absolutely. And that's what we see as well, through people that we deal with all the time, whether they're homeowners or companies, whatever it looks like. The biggest thing I can say is your customers are going to be happy. the neighbors are going to be green with envy, right? And you're not, I mean, at
Absolutely.
a certain time, and it does take some time to switch over, a lawn from being completely conventional over to organic or biologically focused and build the soil health. But when that shift does occur and that does happen, what's amazing about it, if you ask me, is the simple fact that that lawn has resilience. Right. Next thing we're going to have drought periods. We're going to have all these different things happening in the climates, and the lawns will still stay green, and we're using less and less inputs, which is an amazing thing. So that's really cool. And it's funny too, because one thing I always mention is it's like people really care about, and you mentioned a few things, right? Their pets, their kids. And what's amazing, especially with you being a new dad, that we were talking about, that's really awesome. Congrats on that. But
Thanks.
thing is a lot of these people that have pets, they usually call us and they say, hey, you know what? I'm worried about my pets being on the lawn. And you can hear the kids screaming in the background. And it's like, oh man, like let's look at this a little different. Like you have kids as well. You know what
Sure.
I mean? So like let's look at the kids, and yes, the pets are important too, don't get me wrong. But boy, I tell you, it's interesting sometimes some of the stuff we hear, and people are really focused on it, especially people that do own pets, which we'll get into a little bit. You've seen the turf and landscape industry, I guess, Robert, change over, 25 years.
Yes.
What's the biggest misconception homeowners still have about the soil today, would you say?
That is just dirt. That's probably the best way that I explain it, that the soil is just dirt. They don't understand that. We go there and you see companies, especially out our way, like Mr. Molt, where you get this. And then when you kind of are able to transition, I think I actually read this on something with you. What is dirt and what is actual topsoil? And then when you can kind of put that picture and paint that picture to them that this is what we're doing, this is what it looked like, and show that transition through those rhizospheres of soil and show what actually is working and what is really beneath there. That's the biggest thing. We're not just dealing with dirt. We're dealing with a living ecosystem, which is absolutely amazing. And that's probably the hardest thing to in what we just kind of talked about is that transition. There's a lot more going on than just meets the eye.
Yes, absolutely. And, that's what we always say. They're unseen giants, right? The
Sure.
bacteria, I mean, the life of the soil, because people can't see it. What they usually see is earthworms, right? And they're
Yep.
like, oh, worms, that's disgusting or whatever that is. It's like, no, that's like the best thing that could have happened, to your soil at this point. When you see worms, it's a good day. And that's the funny thing. And that's what we run into a lot as well. And that's, I think, the way people have been trained, right, over decades of time, of the simple fact that it's just an inert thing that holds roots in it, that grows, whether it's a tree or your turf or whatever that is, that it's just inert. And the reality is when you get a soil, and like you said earlier, the grass browns out or whatever that looks like, and they just dump more synthetic fertilizer, nitrogen on it or whatever that looks like. At a certain point in time, it does become inert, and it is dirt, right? It's just all it
Yes.
is basically just a pot that's sitting there that has no life in it, that's dead, that the only way that grass is being fed, or the tree or whatever, or the bush, whatever you're talking about in landscape, is a simple fact is when I come and feed it what it needs, right? And
Yes.
that's
Absolutely.
definitely not sustainable, and we see the same thing. But people are wisening up as well. They're starting to realize, man, there is life there, and when you start telling people, well, there's bacteria all over your body, that kind of the same principle as what's in your soil. It's
Sure.
like, gut microbes. We start talking about those things, and it's easy for people to start to relate to those things. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you. That's the biggest misconception. It's just dirt, right? It's
Yeah,
just, I
and
don't.
color is health, not all the time. It's really that's, like you just mentioned, more green it up. And that color is definitely not going to make sure that it's the most healthy thing there. But yeah, definitely a tough objection to overcome, especially with this newer science.
Absolutely. It's funny. We did a podcast not too long ago with a company that has a tool that it's in ag right now, but it scans actually leaves. It's this camera that you literally can put on the leaves, and you can see deficiencies in that plant
Wow.
through its lens technology, where you can actually see, it's 13 different macro and micronutrients, and you can correct things. And we were talking during that podcast, and it was interesting because he's like, we can sometimes scan a leaf and it looks perfect, but when you actually get into that corn plant, whatever it is, there's all kinds of deficiencies. The field looks okay, but there's deficiencies like you never imagined. So that's exactly right. Just like dumping tons of fertilizer, right? You're going to see nitrogen there. It doesn't mean it's healthy, right?
No,
Doesn't mean it's
without a
healthy.
doubt, without a doubt. And I keep a microscope in my office, and it's crazy when we show people what's really going on. And having that kind of stuff and being able to educate people is probably one of the most powerful things that we can do in our industry right now, because that's where, as we just discussed, is holding us back. But having that stuff and that kind of technology to be able to do that and show someone what's actually going on is probably one of the most exciting parts for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what we ran into when we were in ag, right? Like kind of ag's a little bit ahead of turf at this point, I would say, in this transition period, right? They're always talking about regenerative ag and all these things now. It's starting to come to the forefront. And that's exactly what we had to do. It was the education, it was the microscopes, it was the trade shows, it was explaining to people why it's so important. And so hopefully this transition will start to take place, Rob, where, they understand where their foods come from. It's like, it's the same principle in your turf. Like you're not eating
Yep.
your grass. You know what I mean? You're not eating your grass, but it's the same principle as your regenerative ag. So that's cool, man. When we get into this next section of this is it's really about sustainability and the environmental impact in 2026, and there's a part in here where your mantra of using nature's cues to guide treatments, right? You're using nature's cues at the end of the day, right? So are you looking at the soil? What are you doing exactly to make those, the difference, I guess? Like what do you take on that?
So, kind of the way that I look at it is, nature guides the rhythm in everything that we do. And, we fine tune the care for the lawn or the trees or the shrubs or whatever it has. And looking at it is, I think we've become so accustomed to just looking at a date on the calendar as to what we need to do, when we need to do it, when that's really not even close to what needs to be done. And
Sure.
truly talking about like that environmental sustainability is we need to watch what's going on outside the window. We had snow 2 weeks ago. It was 50 degrees the other day. So being able to look at like freeze thaw cycles and things like that to know when to be reactive proactive instead of reactive makes all of that difference. And
Sure.
being able to take these cues from what we see outside, apply properly, apply eco-consciously, not over apply, it makes all that difference when it comes to doing that. And it's just really powerful to be able to look outside and, you hear those old things like, oh, when the cherry blossoms bloom, that's when you have to start. But as we go and as I've studied and then, conversations with you, Brandon, we find that just looking out the window, maybe taking a soil temperature test, using some of the technology that we really have at our fingertips allows us to make those responsible decisions where we can go out there and absolutely do the right thing and reduce that herbicide or that pesticide by 75%, reduce that fertilizer by 25%, and really just make it that much better for everybody by just simply understanding and looking outside. You'll hear about some people that I've talked to throughout the industry. They talk about nature's biorhythms and all these crazy stuff, but it really is true. It really does kind of dictate how we should be doing stuff. And it's really kind of interesting when you get into that whole litany of everything that ties into this with the technology, how it really needs to be done and where it's progressing to.
Yeah, no, and I'd have to agree with you 100% on that. It's like, sometimes now in the middle of winter, it is 50, 60 degrees,
Yep.
which is odd, and it's not going to be that way always. It might just be that way this season. But if that's the case, that there is some stuff going on in the soil, right? Like it is a time to potentially, hey, you know what? We need to get some structure built in that soil or whatever that looks like. And even though it's the middle of winter, it's like that's taboo, right? Like, oh, you better not be out there doing anything. Well, I hate to say it, but sometimes you want to be out there at that time for certain reasons. And like you said, nature really does dictate a lot of those things. So
yeah,
that's cool.
It was explained to me like this. You eat dinner before you go to bed, you go to sleep, and then you wake up and there's a continental breakfast. And that's kind of the way that the soil reacts. We're not necessarily treating grass. We're treating the soil. And I think that's one of the most important things, understanding how that's working. That, there's no lawn care in the middle of the winter, but there is soil care.
And that's the truth, right? Because the things that you're putting in right now are really the food for the microbes, the food for
Correct.
those things, the life of the soil for the spring when it actually wakes up all the way and it's ready to go to work, you know? So that's great. I'm happy you're not starving your soils, buddy.
Never.
All
We're getting
right.
there.
All right.
We're
All
getting
right.
there.
That's good. That's good. Let's discuss Moyer's initiative to reduce carbon emissions by up to 1 ton per lawn. I know they have an initiative out there, like an idea of being able to do that.
Sure.
Are you obviously you're familiar with it? You're the operations manager. Let's discuss it a little bit.
So when you look into it and you actually really do the research, so regular lawn care, just kind of sitting there, not treating the soil or anything like that. When you break it down, just regular lawn care is like leaving 4 compact cars running on your yard for the course of 1 year. By taking everything and being able to use like carbon sequestration and all these things and breaking up that nutrient fixation, it can actually reduce the carbon footprint for everybody by 1 ton on each lawn each year. Now that's going to vary, weather, climate change, and everything like that. But the overall impact of what you're doing by basically putting down the right stuff at the right time is making just a gigantic environmental impact, because all that stuff going through photosynthesis and, all that trapped nitrogen and everything that's in there in those soil aggregates, we're using what's there. We're not actually, like we talk, being reactive and just putting more stuff down. So when you look at that as a whole, and just as our company as a whole, what a difference that can make, at the end of the year. And that kind of definitely, we'll call it carbon footprint, that leaves an imprint on, a homeowner when they look at it, their family and their kids and everything. Being more environmentally sound from a lawn care company or a tree care company, I think really just kind of catches on. I mean, in our area, 82% of people use some type of service, whether it be them kind of doing it themselves or using a professional lawn care service like us. So that just shows you, if you make just that small step and those small increments, what a difference we're making as a whole. And, we're big at more on community and being
Yeah.
out there and about. And that's a powerful statement to make. And I don't think a lot of people even think about that. But if you park 4 cars in someone's yard and let them run for a year, that's an amazing feat to accomplish.
You think about how many acres of turf you guys do at Moyer. I don't know how many that is, but you start adding that up, and that's a lot of acreage. It's a
Yes.
lot of acreage of lawns in a year and a lot of, potential carbon sequestration banked into the soil. Like there's a lot of benefit to that. It's not only ag that needs to be looking at these things. There are a lot of lawns out there, a lot of landscapes, a lot of turf, right? And it's funny because really a lot of times ag gets a bad name. They're like, oh, they're polluting the waterways, they're doing this, they're doing that. And
Yeah.
the reality is it's a lot of the homeowners that maybe run to Home Depot or run here or there, wherever they go, buy their bags of fertilizer, their chemical sprays, and they go to town, right? Like those guys are like, that's really the pollutants where it's coming. And so with that being said, that's cool that you guys are focused on that, reducing carbon emissions. And it's cool that you've tied it now into turf care. And I think it's something that to be able to show that and be like, hey, look how much we're reducing. That's a
Yeah.
big step. Big step. So that's really cool. Why are cleaner and greener treatments? Why aren't they just for the environment, but they actually really produce a better looking product? Meaning, as we focus on soil health, cleaner, greener treatments, right? If we're going to put things onto the turf, it's to really feed soil, right?
Mhm.
Not necessarily just to feed that plant, but how do they actually produce that better looking product, meaning the lawn or the tree or whatever, the landscape?
I mean, healthy soil equals healthy turf, healthy trees. And it really does come down to that, to really just simplify and take it down to the base level. That's really what it's about. Looking at thousands of trees and thousands of soil tests and everything like that. When we get that baseline to be
Yep.
where it needs to be, you can kind of see that. And taking like core samples and being able to see like, hey, this is where it was treated with. And I use my lawn as kind of the litmus for everything to see where it's at one place. And then you see that root structure in another place. You understand what that is actually doing for us by doing that. So getting that green, sustained looking lawn does take a little time. It's not that quick fix as we discussed. but
Sure.
ultimately that sustainability below is what's going to actually make it cleaner and greener.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so true. So when you focus on that, the soil, those cleaner, greener treatments, meaning we're feeding the soil. The reality is we feed that soil and we make that soil profile better and better. The green's going to come, right? The
Yep.
trees are going to flourish. The landscapes are going to be more resilient to droughts, to all those things. So that's really cool. And it's really tough too, I think, because you're trying to balance, right, a customer's desire for this perfect lawn with also the environmental need for reduced chemical input, right? Or dependency, you could say. So how do you guys manage that? And I know you guys are just kind of hopping into this. It's been a couple of years process to really start the ball rolling. But how do you guys manage that? Is it kind of tough to manage that, like, customers expect just this, golf course lawn, but maybe there is a transition period, How do you guys deal with that?
Definitely a transition period. And, talking with the owners of Moyer, who I know you've met as well, it really is all about explaining to them. And people really do understand that there is no magic wand. It's not going to be Harry Potter lawn care and everything like that. It's about taking that time. And as you just mentioned, building that soil profile to the point where ultimately it's going to stay greener longer. As I just mentioned, I use my lawn. If you looked out the window right now, my lawn's bright green and my neighbors are a completely different color. And towards the end of the year, yeah, absolutely, I do treat weeds and everything like that. But that visual aspect, I think, is how we kind of make them believers. By taking those lawns and having that baseline and saying, hey, this is a lawn done by Moyer. This is a lawn done by X and X, Y, and Z. And that really is it. I mean, all in all, we're in the visual industry. And
That's
when
it.
we can get to that point where that's all we really need to do is look out the window. That's kind of how you set that tone. But it does take time. It definitely was not an easy transition by any means.
Well, and I look at it this way. Look how long it's taken us to destroy the soils. It's
Sure.
taken us a lot of decades, right? Like, to actually break them down, to destroy them, to do those things. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to wake up tomorrow. Like you said, it's, the Harry Potter lawn with the wand and bam, and it's green. I mean, that'd be great if we could. And you can do that with some of these products, but
Yeah.
it takes a very large budget. And most people just, they just can't quite swing it. And there still is some transition there. What's cool though is whenever you see those green lawns and the neighbors and all of those things, and it's, January right now, they're going to start questioning, like, what's going on with this guy's lawn? You know what I mean? I need those guys to do my lawn, and I think that's what's going to happen is it's
Sure.
that visual that they see. And then before you know it, it's going to be more and more people dealing with it. So we have the soil taken care of. You're in these transition periods. You guys are trying to move away from chemicals more and more, really focus on soil health, building structure, life, energy of soil. So you have healthy landscapes. Are you guys actually integrating any other type of technology at this point, like precision tech? It's a big in ag right now, obviously, but in the turf side of it, the role of AI and data in site-based safety checks and treatment planning. Are you guys utilizing any of that stuff now, or is it starting to come forth in the industry?
It's starting to come forth in the industry to that level, not just yet. I mean, we use a lot of technology and data points and everything like that as far as tracking soil temperature. To that level, we haven't gotten there yet. Probably in the near future, because you can see that with AI and everything kind of transitioning. I mean, you can now. I mean, I've tried it. I'm sure everybody's tried it. You can take a picture of a grass blade, drop it in as a pic, drop it into the chat GPT and find out exactly what's going on. So to that level, to answer your question, Brandon, no, not yet, but we are starting to integrate it by using tools like, real-time data tracking of soil temperatures, real-time data tracking of fungus, crabgrass germination, and all those things. And that really helps us set the tone for, do we really need to do this now? Again,
Yes.
right time, right place, right product.
Yep, absolutely. Right rate, all those
Yep.
things, right? The 4 R's, buddy. The four
You
R's,
got it.
right? That's right. That's right. No, that's cool. And I'm sure it's going to come, to tell you the truth. It's going to continuously integrate more and more where that technology, maybe it's the soil test you guys pull, because I know you guys do soil testing. There's
Yeah,
certain
absolutely.
things you guys do. And as you dump all that data in, you're going to be able to see as you build those data sets up and all of those things. I mean, algorithms, machine learning, all those things will take place, and it will start to speed up, I'm sure, in the turf and landscape industry. You'll be able to make even more pinpoint decisions on those, the rates, what products, what needs to be put to feed the soil now. But the hope
Absolutely.
is, and the reality is you get to that point where you turn them into almost regenerative lawns. And it's hard to do that without, obviously, I joke around about it a lot in ag. You have to have cattle, right? And you're not going to have people out there with cattle in their lawn, right?
Yes.
Because you have to somehow recycle it. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the goal, is to move more towards that regenerative principle where the lawns really start to just take care of themselves, meaning soil takes care of itself, which then, takes care of the lawn and the landscapes and all those things. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Funny you said that. I actually read an article the other day. It was called Sheep, Solar, and Soil, talking about regenerative farming with solar plants.
Yeah. It's a big deal, man. And that's
It
what they
is.
all are, right? You look at
Yeah,
it, they're all solar panels, right? We joke about it a lot, and it's like, man, how many horsepower does a, acre of ground
exactly.
have? How much solar energy is there out there? It's the only free form of energy at this point still,
Without a
right?
doubt.
There's no taxes on it yet. There's nothing like that. I probably shouldn't say anything too loud, but,
All good.
as we look at the climate adaptability, with what you're dealing with, where you're at you guys are out in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Is there certain trees and turf that can survive better in these unpredictable weather patterns? I mean, really, it's happened in the past, like I would say probably 5 years to 10 years. 10 years is
Yeah.
kind of stretching it, but really 5 years since 2020, something like that, where really weather patterns are changing crazy. Are there certain trees, or how do you guys select certain trees and turf that really actually does better? Or is it kind of still the standard? It's just now, guess what? We're focused on the soil, which will then help those trees and turf adapt
That's
to
a
those changes.
fantastic question. So I actually wrote my senior thesis on climate change and turf grass management, and
There you go.
you find that even around this area, we have a bunch of golf courses and things like that. In the past, they would always done the roughs with ryegrass or bluegrass. It doesn't survive anymore out here. Summers get too hot; it becomes just drought stress the whole time. So they've switched to these different types of red fescues and turf type tall fescues to be able to do that. Even dealing with some of the golf courses that we deal with, because we sponsor the junior PGA out here, is you start talking to some of these turf grass managers or these foremen of these golf courses, and they're actually really doing that kind of stuff. They're doing like these micro fertilizers to be able to do that and putting these different types of wetting agents and everything, which is great because they're more natural when it comes to really doing that. But you absolutely are start seeing it like trees in this area. People would plant different types of arborvitaes. And I remember out that way, the pinyon pines and everything like
Yeah.
that is they don't survive here, and it's just they're dying off, which makes them come stressed in the summer, which makes them more prone to different types of funguses and different types of insects. So, I mean, weather is just absolutely ravaging it, and that really is what it comes. As we talk about, that roots down here, it's be able to retain more water by keeping that soil healthy, as opposed to just here where we're treating that symptom.
Yeah, when you actually get those, say, rain events or the moisture coming through, you actually can keep it in that soil profile with the extra organic matter and carbon and all that there. No, that's really cool. And it's funny, we actually have a turf mix where it does have like a creeping red fescue, a hard red fescue, a Pippolina micro clover. It's
I love
big.
that
And there's a lot of people that don't like it. They think clover and they're like, spray it out of my lawn right now. It's a weed.
all
And
day
my
long.
wife, my wife was the same way. Like she about strangled me when I said we're going to interseed this into our lawn. But the reality of the matter is it does help with those drought periods, with the droughts that we're starting to see and less water and those things. So that's interesting that you say that. Are you guys starting to run into anything? I like to call it barkitecture, right? Like we were talking about animals, right?
Yes.
And functional yards. Are you guys starting to see that, there's a trend of designing landscapes for pets and 360 a year usability? Or like, obviously for kids, right? It's like you want the play place, you want the nice grass without the clover because there's bees out there. And for some pet owners too, right? They're just like, oh, we don't want that because there's bees and my dog eats them and they get stung and all that. But are you guys seeing that out your way where people are like, hey, I want to design my landscape to be able to be pet friendly or anything like that?
Without a doubt. It definitely is here already. So we have two dogs. We have an Akita, which is 105 pounds, and a Cavapoo. And when we take them out, we have this dog park that's right down the road. The whole thing is designed for the comfort of the dogs, with having different types of fake architecture, like little running things that go through filters and different types of trees where if they go through certain things. So it absolutely is. I mean, we all know pets are part of the family.
Yeah,
I mean, nowadays, that's probably one of the biggest things. And to be honest, you see those different types, even just get back to the turf grass. That's what people want. They want that healthy space to bring their dog, to be able to bring their pets and everything like that. And
sure.
we are absolutely without a doubt seeing that in this area.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, and out here in Colorado where we're at, it's the same thing, right? Pets are a big deal. Yeah, and they're
Sure.
everywhere, don't get me wrong, but Coloradans love their dogs, right? It's the mountains,
Absolutely.
it's, hanging out. And so no, that's really cool. So I guess the next thing is like with the prosumer mindset on the rise, how are smart irrigation? Are you guys dealing with smart irrigation and AI guided tools or anything like that, like in the irrigation side? Is that changing the way that your team operates at all? You said you're not really integrating it yet, but you see it coming. Are you starting to see that kind of stuff in irrigation?
We are. I don't see it too much. It's definitely newer out this way, having those smart sensors and those soil sensors to be able to detect those moisture levels. To
Huh.
to be honest, yeah, it's not out this way. I have seen it. Some of the companies, the larger ones are starting to do it, but it's definitely a little bit more of a niche service out this way as of.
Absolutely. I bet you're going to see it more and more, right? As water becomes more scarce. We're out here, we're horrible this year. Like we don't have any moisture at all, really. I think we've had one little snowstorm that's come through that dropped, or a couple. We had one right after Thanksgiving last year, and then we've had another one. But otherwise, like this weekend, I'll be hooking up the hose and watering my lawn. And, and it's January in Colorado. So
And we're
as
getting a
we
snowstorm.
let's look at Moyer now a little bit more. Moyer prioritizes, I would say, certifications, higher learning for their technicians, things like that. And you guys are going to have to do that more and more as you
Yes.
integrate these systems in. Why are you guys doing that, would you say? Is it just to get your guys' techs and the people that are going to be out on these lawns and in these landscapes educated so then you can educate the consumer? Or what is that exactly? Because I know they do prioritize certifications, higher learning. I don't know if they helped you get your degree or what, but they
Absolutely.
understand how important it is to have educated people that understand this stuff. So if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that. Why do they prioritize it?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the most important things is every time we're out there, we're not just lawn care technicians or tree care technicians. We're an expert every time we're out there. And I think the biggest thing and what this industry has lost touch with is our customers are the most important thing. Our community is the most important thing. We can just answer those questions and have that knowledge and explain what goes on right there. And that all comes from that. And that gives you as a company, as an industry, it gives us all credibility, which is huge. I mean, all in all, yes, we still do go out there. We spray weeds and everything to know what we're really doing when we're out there at every touch point along the way. It is something that I think we lost, and Moyer absolutely does prioritize that. I'm lucky enough to kind of be the trainer, the educator. I'm also the trainer and the educator for the New Jersey Turfgrass Association. So I get to watch this and actually, watch some of these people grow and watch some of the, the lawn care or the senior technicians grow. And that all comes from, us being able to provide them with the certifications. And you know what? They get excited about it. And to watch them, everybody get excited about it, even makes it that much better.
Absolutely. And that education is an important part, just like I had mentioned to you before, like with what we have with the biological beyond organic, the fundamentals course, teaching people the fundamentals of soil health, how to build soil, how to do
Yeah.
that. It really starts there. And I think that's great that Moyer does really prioritize that for, their technicians, for their employees. And then not only that, but for the community. Like
Yeah.
that's the cool part, because if you guys can be the leaders and show them like, hey, look, we are doing it differently and we are going to prioritize the certifications, the higher learning, and then we're going to teach the community where you can lean on us to ask questions, those types of things. I think that's a great thing that they do, and then how would you say that having this, expertise like with yourself, right? all of your certifications, your master's degree, how does that lead to employee retention and better customer trust? Is it just a simple fact that whenever they're there, you kind of mentioned it before, I have a question for you, I'm going to ask you that question, boom, I can answer that. But does it lead to employee retention then, kind of having those expertise?
Without a doubt. I mean, it makes it a career. It shows people how far this industry goes, and that we're not just a baseline. Like, there is a level that you can get to, and to find out that you can get a master's degree in plant sciences, and you should see some of the other ones that are out there, turf grass and plant pathology and all these things. Like, it is a big deal, and it's not just going out there and treating lawns or treating trees anymore. It's an industry where, when we retain our employees and everything like that, and show them that pattern and where this can actually grow, they get excited. They see the path that they can get, and that's where it really comes. And honestly, for lack of a better phrase, that's really what makes that team, is when everybody's learning together. I learn every single day, and then getting them fired up, they bring things to me all the time, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. And that's really what makes everybody kind of want to stick around to see where this thing goes. And
Yeah.
especially being as innovative and fast forward thinking as we are, it's definitely something that has helped us along the way, because it can be a tough industry, as we all know. There's definitely been along the mindset of, it's just a revolving door. There's a lot of turnover, but I can tell you this, we have a lot of individuals that absolutely love what they do, just like me. And it's great.
That's really cool. Yeah. And that's going to be the hardest part, I feel like, for some companies to find, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of those like spray techs guys that, that go out on the lawns, like that's usually just what it was. They were
Yeah.
happy to take their, or at least around here, we have some companies that it's like, here's your job attached unemployment at the end of the year. I'll come back and I'll spray again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'll do the same thing over. And it's just, they look at it more as just a cookie cutter approach, whereas it's cool to see, as you build those expertise in each individual, like you said, it's a career. It's
It
not
is.
just like, hey, I'm going to show up, and spray again today. It's like you're learning something more, which is cool. And then any advice you can give maybe for young professionals, entering the green industry today. And when I say green industry, more so for the turf care, right? You've been like 25 years of time in, you've seen it all, or a
Sure.
lot, right? Quite a bit. So at the end of the day, is there something that you can maybe put out there that if there is a young kid or a young professional that's wanting to get into this, give them a little advice if you could?
Sky's the limit, and embrace the science. I think that's the thing that's really making this industry evolve as fast as it is being able to get in there and understanding how this all works. And don't just stop at one point. You can do the lawn, you can do the trees. That's why I got the arborist and the plant science. And there really is just so many avenues that we can get into. Unfortunately, I didn't learn that a little bit later in life, but it's actually been one of the most exciting things, especially for someone just getting in here, is knowing that there is so much out there that this industry has to offer. If the lawn care is not your thing, as you mentioned, you can go into ag sciences and things like that. So embrace the science would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to that soil first revolution, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'll let you talk about it a little bit, but why is healthy soil? Why is it the future of lawn and tree care, would you say?
Because that's really what we need to do. And even for the first part, I get so passionate about this, Brandon, is that you really do see what we're doing out there on a day-to-day basis. Like, when you put your shoe on the morning, there's 1,800 chemicals in that shoe, and we don't even think twice about it. But when we see what we can do to the lawn just to be able to do that, or to the trees, it really does. It really is a revolution. And it's funny, because you being all the way out there, me being all the way over here, that's one thing that drew me, is I saw your philosophies and I saw the way that you were going after this. And I was just like, wow, that is super interesting. And then again, you and I have been talking for about 3 years. So just being able to kind of define that and get into that and just change this whole thing, it really is just super exciting to see. And it's making its way from the West Coast to the East Coast. And, hopefully we start going north and south and we really start to see that change.
Absolutely. And when we were getting into it back in 2008, we were in the center of the country and people thought we were absolutely crazy. And we're like,
Absolutely.
no, it's all about soil. It's all about soil. And they're like, I really, really truthfully believe they thought we'd just go away at some point, right?
Yep.
But I'm like, no, you know what? There's more to this. People need to learn this. And so it's great to see that, that it has made it. You say from the west to the east. I don't know if that's true. I kind of see it from the east and the west, and then it moves inland. It's kind of crazy, but I'm sure for you, you're like, man, it started in the west, it's moving to the east.
Yeah.
But, we always get it last, right? We're in the middle of the country, and everybody's like, well, I don't have to worry about, half the stuff that the guys on the West Coast or the East Coast worry about. Why do I need to worry about my soil? But, it's funny. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's healthy soil is the future. It's the future of everything, whether it's food security, or, I mean, you name it. Climate change, weather changes, all of those things, it all plays a role, and it all goes back to the soil. So also, if you could, just talk to me a little bit, and this is another piece of it, but the trees, the turf, and the hidden competition underground. And I know that you sometimes you mention this and you talk about it, but what do we have there? What is that hidden competition?
The hidden competition is, I think, the way that we plan out here and the way that we've kind of structured our landscapes and everything is that everything just overlaps and it just crowds everything out. So, by being able to reduce that competition that's underground and allow like Mother Nature to do its thing, let that root structure, let that taproot get down to the water and everything. What we do and how we plan. I mean, I'll go to some things, driving around and everything, and I'll see these rows of like arborvitaes and spruces and everything like that are 100 yards long. And we really look at that. Can those trees that are, a foot apart really be sustaining themselves? And the answer is no. And being able to do that and explain kind of, spacing and soil and all these different things, and making these little ecosystems, and not planting the same tree on everybody's property, because that what happens is one gets a disease, they all get a disease. It really is just kind of showing people how to reduce that competition, use what you have there by kind of making everything biodiverse, using different things that aren't going to be in competition with each other. And ultimately, having it and doing the right thing is going to make the landscape thrive on any level.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm sure, and this is more of like your arborist angle, I would say, but, since you're an ISA certified arborist, have you heard about the pocket forest trend that people are doing? I don't know if you've heard about it out there. It's big in Colorado. And it's basically homeowners, and they're just planting like these dense mini ecosystems in their backyards. And sometimes there's so much competition, you have to be smart when you're doing it, if you
Sure.
do that. Right. But it is starting to become a big thing. And they call them pocket forests. Right. And they're just ripping out backyards or turf or whatever. And they're planting forests literally in their yards.
I did, and I think I heard another term. It was called like a Miyawaki forest or something like that. Is kind of
Yeah.
how they name it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting, and those things catch on, and they'll probably be super popular. And I guess I'm going to ask you a question. When did you start seeing that come around? Because it
I would
definitely
say
hasn't hit out here too much.
really, I would say it's probably been in the past couple of years.
Okay.
People and that and food forests. I don't know if you guys get very much. There's a lot of people that are literally tearing out landscapes, and they're putting in food forests where everything that is planted in that space is edible,
I love
whether
it.
it's from trees. I mean, you name it. And it's a cool concept. Don't get me wrong. The people that mow the lawns, if they're going to be planting, turf in between all that, they're not going to be happy, right? But
Yeah.
the thing is from that standpoint, I'd say about the past couple of years, that's when we've really
Interesting.
seen people starting to ask us about it, and really food forests. That's the big one that people are really, they just want to be able to eat whatever they plant. It's pretty interesting, or eat off
That's
of.
pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's cool. I'm sure you guys will start running into it out there. If not, start the trend, right?
Yeah, we're starting to see a lot more rooftop gardens and everything, which is
Yeah,
pretty cool.
absolutely. Yeah, we ship some stuff out to New York sometimes to places
Yeah.
out there, pumice and things like that for rooftop gardens. They're like, hey, can you get this to the 30th floor? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, it can get to the 36th floor, but it's going to cost you a bit, But no, that's cool. And then we kind of talked about this earlier too, the seasonal strategies. There's really not a seasonal strategy anymore. Like you said, it's nature. Right? It's what nature's telling you needs to be done. And so that's pretty cool and you mentioned it earlier, right? Like, hey, you know what? Everything we're doing right now in January is really, we're looking at March. We're
Yes.
providing food for the microbes and for the soil health and all that, or for the soil life. in March or whenever those soils really start to come out of dormancy and really get to thriving. So can't really necessarily look at seasonal strategies anymore, correct?
Not anymore. As you just
Yeah.
mentioned, rain, we had about a year ago, we had not a drop of rain for 84 days. Again, doing the right things right all the time, every time is really what it's all about. Like, there's no need to go put fertilizer down when you haven't had rain for 84 days. So what do? You have to do the right things right. But ultimately, from what we did, and even the changes that we're getting into, customers and educating customers, they saw the difference in their lawns because of what we were doing, even in that nominal change that we started making. And as we're progressing into what we hope to go to in the near future.
That's great, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to see customers, they're going to first question you, right? Like, what are you doing out here in January?
Yep.
But then they're going to start to understand it. And of course, the competitors are laughing at this point. They're like, well, what are these guys doing? Right. And it's just like smile and wave, just doing
All
our thing.
day.
Yeah. Just doing our thing.
Yep.
From like, what was that aha moment, would you say, from your Penn State studies that kind of changed how you manage operations at Moyer or how you manage them now? Was there an aha moment at Penn State or through other studies that you were just like, we're going to, change how we manage this, if you don't
No,
mind?
that's a great question. So I think when I really started to make that decision to, bring this forward and kind of present this as a whole, I, I'm in an area where there's a lot of lawn care companies, and I'm just driving through these neighborhoods, seeing lawn care flag after lawn care flag after lawn care flag. And I'm just like, everybody is doing this the same way and nothing looks different. What can we do different and how can we do it? So I kind of tried starting at a level with just friends and family. And from there, it just kind of took off and I became more interested in it. But yeah, just sitting there watching everybody and looking at all the people that had this and going, nothing looks different.
Yeah.
But there's yet different colors of different flags every time. And why are they getting these? Why are
Yep.
you hiring somebody?
Yep. Absolutely. That's cool, man. Yeah. And it's true. Those flags, and what did they have? They have a big X on them, huh? Don't hop on this lawn for so many days. Right. Because
Without a doubt.
yep, exactly. And so it's like, that's cool that that was kind of like that aha moment, like, let's shift this thing, let's be different.
Yep.
And it takes courage to do that. It takes courage on your part to be like, no, this is the way. And then it also takes courage on the owner's part, that own Moyer, to say, absolutely, you know what, let's do it. Let's figure this out and let's be different. And I think that's great. And I have had some great conversations with the owners regarding it as well. And it's cool that they're willing to change, because there's a lot of people, especially with a company as old as Moyer is,
Yes.
they would have been like, no way, Jose. Like, we've been making money this way for, the past however long the turf and tree portion of your company's been in business. Why are we going to change? But that's cool that you guys are doing it. Call it the rapid fire round, right? Like, I'm just going to ask you questions. Doesn't have to be long answers. Start now. Favorite tree to plant in 2026?
Sunset maple.
Sunset maple. I like it. All right. Most underrated lawn care tool right now?
Your hands.
All right.
Dig in
All
there.
right. Yep. Dig in, right? Dig in. That's cool. What is one thing homeowners should stop doing immediately to their turf or landscape?
From what I see, mowing it every week.
All right.
Let
fair.
it grow a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Protects it, right? Protects that moisture, doesn't allow quite as much evaporation, allows those roots to set a little bit deeper. There's some definitely benefit. Not only that, you're taking in more photosynthesis. There's some benefit to it. I think this was perfect for our audience, people that are interested or that are on the fence about maybe switching over to a more sustainable type of a landscape, whether that's their trees, their turf, or just their entire landscape. I think it's great that we were able to have Rob on here today with Moyer. He's a wealth of information, not only all of his certifications and all of the things that he's, accomplished, but also with the philosophy of where they're pushing this. And it's a scaled business. I'm not saying that this is a guy that has one or two trucks that he's managing. We're talking in the 30s, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
It's a big company, and the change is happening. And that's the biggest thing we want our viewers, our listeners, anybody that sees this to realize, is that change is happening. It's being done on scale. It's being done in turf, in a city, and it's happening. And so, it's just, it's great to have you on, Rob. I definitely appreciate all of our, listeners staying to the end. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, if you give it a 5-star review, the Soil Talks podcast, I'd appreciate it. If you have any questions, anything like that, where can they find you at, Rob? Perfect. Again, thanks a lot. If you would definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, this will be on YouTube. Follow the podcast, like the podcast. We'd appreciate that. And again, we look forward, Rob, to having you on the program again, Soil Talks podcast, to talk more about the landscapes, turf, tree care, all of those things. We definitely appreciate your expertise and your time today, Rob. Yeah, you have a great day. Thank you.